Let's start, Matt, with the story that I know everyone wants more information on. We're trying to get more information on. There's nothing to say as of now. Now, you were at ECGC, the East Coast Gaming Congress, earlier this week, and trying to keep up with everybody on the East Coast about what's next in New York. So why don't you bring everybody up to speed on where we are, what we're waiting for, and what the next steps look like?
Yeah, sure. So like you said, it's a little quiet right now, right? The deadline to find out who wanted to go along with the super expensive tax rate of up to 64%, that passed Monday at 5 o'clock Eastern time. So the 6 bidders had to lodge their interest and say, yes, no, we would pay this tax matrix, which wasn't a matrix, it was more just a line, but then it's neither here nor there. So yeah, right now we're still waiting to hear who will actually pay the 64% if it was only 4 or 5 operators, down to 35% if all 14 were accepted. Probably going to be 50% with 12 operators expected. The thing is, it does come down to the regulators at this point, and they are allowed to bring on as many of those bids as they want, as long as it makes financial sense for the state of New York. And it feels hard to make the argument that dropping from that 50% at 12 operators down to 35% at 13 or 14, that would be a good thing for New York. It's always possible, of course, but it seems like at least 2 people might get left out, so New York can try to maximize their state revenue here.
So, Dustin, as we look at the grid matrix, whatever you want to call it, with these tax rates, we have to keep in mind also that there are the so-called super bids, right, where we have 4, 5 or more sports books in together on these bids. And it almost feels like the top bid has to have come from one of these, because of the fact that you immediately are going to kick yourself into that 50% range, and you're going to disincentivize going with the solo operators at 64% who might not be able to generate quite as much. So I know we're getting into speculation range here where we don't know much, but at the same time, it's really hard to see a DraftKings, FanDuel, MGM, or a Caesars Rush Street Win left out in the cold.
I would agree. I mean, everything I'm hearing and just common sense leads you to believe this conclusion that those 2 super bids are a part of this, that one of them, or, I think we've all heard whispers of which one of these 2 was the one that did the top tax rate. But that's the only thing that really makes sense. Cause yeah, if you're a single operator and you're trying, you don't really even for Monopoly, you're going to have a hard time making any money in New York. And then you're purely as, I guess, market access. And they're not going to just take one of those single operators, I think, at this point. So it's what makes the most sense. And, as we break this down there are better ways to do sports betting than New York has it. But if you're looking at it, it's, it is this magic number of 9 to 12 at a 50% rate. And it almost has to include all of these big operators who account for, I don't know if we're adding up those 9, something like 95% of the market, most likely. Right.
Yeah. And we know that there are next steps to come, because the regulators had until December 6th to make their selection. We're obviously a bit ahead of that timeline here. We still don't know, of course, who is matching the tax rate, who submitted the top bid, et cetera, et cetera. So does that give people any hope that betting might be available via mobile sooner than later in New York?
Potentially, right? Senator Joe Addabbo Jr. is one of the most optimistic men in the world when it comes to New York mobile sports betting. And he still swears that we will get some sort of NFL playoff betting on mobile apps, which would suggest a mid-January launch at the earliest. It just doesn't. It seems like it would be very hard to do that. There's still a lot to work out. You're not sure what's going on behind the scenes, if negotiations are going on where the servers need to be placed in the casinos, because remember, that's how this is all happening. The casinos are placing the servers there, and the bets are being routed through the casino, so it happens on casino property. We can debate that as much as you want as well. Right. But yeah, it feels like it's going to be a time crunch, but there are a lot of people that want to get it done. So January is still the date that I'm hearing that is the hopeful target, but it's going to be tough.
All right. So both of you on the record here, is it going to happen before the Super Bowl?
I'll bet over
No
the
Super Bowl for Dustin. Sticking to his brand. Negativity is the thing. What do you think, Matt? Are we getting New York mobile betting by the Super Bowl?
You know what? There's a reason Joe Adabo has his job, and he's just so persuasive, and he has me believing him at this point. So I'll go with Joe.
I like that because you don't want him to lose his spaghetti again, right? Like,
That's right.
Maybe the quote of the year from Legal Sports Report. Check out all of Matt's work at legalsportsreport.com following the New York situation. He's been on this from the jump, and we will be following any developments that are happening when it comes to the Empire State